That's tomorrow for your validation test. Make sure you read everything I've taught you under crystal structure. Exactly. Now, Brian, yes, why? Guys, I'm not sick. Let me keep your hand on the consider that as regards to the question we made for crystal and crystal grade. Okay, now please study very well as regards to crystalline, exactly, amorphous, unit cell, lattice, know how to define them, how to do the example, and the diagrams. The area of confusion is you did everything. It's just a topic. And now I decided I will use just five. And we can't afford to get nothing less than 10 over 10. I will do my and pass mark is what mark? Though I said 8 initially, but now it's 10 because it's not much. Just a topic. Yes or no? And our guys should start again now. If I'm not ready to do what? Okay, now I want to start a topic today called what? Elastic properties of what? Who are existing here? Elastic band. Like a rubber band. And it's elastic. I want a rubber band. Yes, thank you. I'll give you back. You see this material? But if I stretch it now, see, this is the length. I will do. If I pull it, look at the length. It increases. Listen, what made the length of this elastic band to increase?
Elasticity.
You didn't get what I said. Listen, this is the elastic material called a rubber what? A rubber band. Now this is the actual length of the what? Rubber band. Now watch me. I did like this. Now what happened to the length of the rubber band? To this, what made it to increase? God bless you. It's not the property. It was applying a force to it that make it to what? Increase. If I apply what happens to it, it will keep increasing. To a point that this is really like this. To the point if I pull it. Now, I they call elastic limit. Once it goes beyond the what happens to it, it cuts. Now, that means, listen, there's a man, a physicist called Hooks. What do I call his name? Hooks. This is not about Hooks. No. This man called Hooks, from his experiment, let's take. And from his experiment, he observed that the higher the force, the higher the water. The length of the word elastic band. Yes or no? But he did not call it length, he called it extension. Now, what is an extension? Let me explain. An extension is additional length. It is common to girls, they will say attachment. That's why you can see a girl like Fatima, her hair is like this. During salad break or during layer, you see the hair here. How come this short hair has now grown longer? Did you plant it? What about attachment? Exactly. Now when we say extension simply means what? Additional what? Length. Are you with me? Okay. Now, this is also an elastic material. Any material that has a tendency to stretch or to compress is called a what?
Elastic material.
Okay, let me ask this. Are human being elastic material?
No.
You can't stretch us. Exactly. As long as the material can be stretched or compressed, they're elastic. Now, this is a spiral spring. What do I call it?
Spiral spring.
Now watch it. Now, if you see this spiral spring now, I want to apply a force to it. Now, just what your focus should be on this one, not on me. Now watch. What happened to it? It's what? Increasing. Now, initially, watch. Let me remove this. What happened? It's compressed. Let me see. Let me add this again. What happened? Now, what made this thing to increase?
Because of force.
The force. Very good. You started Without the force, no what? No extension. I mean, without the force, there's no extension. Now, that made a man called Oaks, exactly, to state a law, and we'll call it Oaks law. Exactly. Now, I won't state law now, I'll still give you law. I'll just explain. Now, what Oaks says that force is directly proportional to what? Extension. Let me explain. Now, Oaks law, this is everyone that states law in physics, we call them physicists. Physicist is someone that is between a physicist and a physician. And not the same one. Now, who is a physician?
Someone who is like a doctor who treats different
Okay, now you can call them local doctor. All these I don't want to call them herbalists now. All these herb doctors that use herbs to cure health. Exactly. Now you call them physician. In Yoruba they call them onishegun. Exactly. Those that use herbs to cure. When we say a physicist who?
somebody like a professor in science.
Someone like me now, I'm a physicist because I went to university and studied physics as a course. As a course in university called physics. Because we have chemistry, we have biology, we have geography. I have a course called what? Physics. And if you want to study physics in university, we call it what? A physicist. Exactly now. Now, according to Hooke's law states that, and listen, that the force applied is directly proportional to the extension, provided that the elastic limit is not what? Exceeded. Now, what does that mean by exceeded? Is that your senior, those days when we were doing practical, I give them to you know you guys were very funny. I give them to also practicalize. One of them won't mention me. After doing like this, finish. One is that he landed, he moved this, he now stretches like this. He stretches to the point that the thought is going to return. Then I now look like oh, he don't return. But now I asked my why, I said, how you stretch this thing? You keep stretching, this is enough. If you go beyond this, it will not return. It means it has passed the word elastic limit. When the elastic limit, it don't go beyond this. If you go beyond this, it's like, for instance, my time is dearly FC. And I say, I'm warning you, don't pass your boundary. And I keep doing it. The next is, everybody can tell you that it's like, wow. And then I say, I'm crying. Who's fault? Because he has gone beyond what? And it's, do you understand?
Yes.
Now that's just a nutshell how to call elastic properties of what? Solid. So do you understand? Right, that's right. Right. Elastic properties of solids. Elastic properties of solid. Elastic properties of solid. Molecules that constitute solid constitute this article constitute molecules that constitute constituent. I'm sorry for that. Molecules that constituent solids are very closely packed. Molecules that constituent solids are very closely packed. Okay, together, and held in relatively fixed position. And held, process of code, HELD, and held. And held. Can we continue?
Yes, sir.
In relatively fixed position. strong intermolecular forces. By strong intermolecular forces. By strong intermolecular forces. Exactly. Full stop. If the extension force applied, past tense of apply. Past tense of what? Very good. If the extension force applied to a solid, is strong enough to change to solid is strong enough to change or distort. To change or distort the shape of a solid. To change or distort the shape of a solid, comma, the solid tend to regain this shape. The solids, tend to regain this shape. The solids tend to regain this similar. Hence, when you stretch a piece of rubber band, hence, comma, when you stretch a piece of rubber band, okay, stretch. Well, in this case, it's not past tense, it's present, stretch. When you stretch a piece of rubber band, comma, it quickly snaps. It quickly snaps. What is the meaning of snaps?
So like when you retard press.
If you retard, it will compress. Okay, very good. Let's continue. It quickly snaps it back to its former shape once it is released. Very good. You guys got it. Let me come again. How do I stop?
A piece of rubber.
A piece of rubber band, comma, it quickly snaps back to its former shape once it is released. It quickly snaps back to its former shape once it is what? Past tense of released. First step. When some load is suspended, when some load is suspended, when some load is suspended, from the end of a coil, yes, from the end of a coil, exactly, from the end of a coil spring. Another word for coil spring is called spiral spring. But from the end of the what? Coil spring or spiral spring. Or spiral spring. Or what? Very good. Comma. The string stretches a certain length. The string stretches a certain length. The string stretches a certain length. Full stop. When the load is removed, past tense of remove. When the load is removed, are you with me? Comma, the spring returns to its former length. The spring returns. When the load is removed, spring. When the load is removed, the spring returns So it's spring, not string. Okay, that reminds me. What is the difference between a spring and a string? Allow me to. The difference between a spring. Guys, watch. This similarity will come. Just listen. What is this?
Spring.
What is this?
Spring.
What is the difference between the two? Let me start with allow me to first. What is the difference?
Spring. Stretch like it's elastic. It's spring. It cannot stretch.
Cannot stretch. Okay. I want another difference. Okay, one. Now give me an instance. Now give me an example. First of all, differentiate between a spring and a string.
The spring can be returned to former length when stretched, while a string cannot be returned to former length after it has been stretched.
Give me an example.
Like spring, we have spiral spring or normal string, we have guitar string.
It's not very good. Now, every spring has the tendency to compress or to be extended. But a string is like a rope. It doesn't have the tendency to stretch or to compress. Like the case of a guitar. That stuff you see in a guitar is not spring, it's string. That is a guitar string. You never hear guitar spring. Exactly. Now, if you look at cars too, you see this thing I showed you in cars. You go and check most cars. There's a they call alignment that leads to the tire. There's a spring there too. I don't know. Observe. Exactly. That stuff you can compress it and you can extend it. That's a spring. And oftentimes a spring is coiled like this. A string is never coiled. Exactly. And a string is always straight like a rope. Exactly. But a spiral spring is not straight like a rope.
No one I said that.
Hold on.
No one I said that when the guy is in the stretch.
Yeah, and it converted the spiral spring to what? A string.
So, is it true that most of the springs are made out of maybe, let's say, metal?
Okay.
Is it true that most springs are made of
String or spring.
spring?
Or spring.
Yes.
What about string?
Like they're made out of something like black rope or like those thread now. It's like cotton wool.
Actually, is correct. Sometimes or oftentimes spiral springs are always metal. You can never see a spiral spring to be another material, let's say for instance a rope or a thread. But in the case of a string can be a metal or any other material, like for instance a thread can be called a string. But you can't call a thread, you call it what? A spring. When he was talking that time, I wanted him to learn. I remember that sometimes in physics practical work, we asked us to get a string, and that string they will now put in bracket thread. And that is obviously speaking, it means that when you say a string, exactly, a string can either be metal or any what material. When it comes to a spring, it must be a metal. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's another difference. Very good. Another difference. Basically, ions are for metals. When we say metal, means iron is the derivative of metals. Exactly. Okay, now, where do I stop? Former full stop. Such objects which will regain their shape. Such objects add S to it, which will regain from the word gain, regain. Which will regain. In English, another word for regain means what? Restore or bless you, or recover, or recollect, or what? Or return. Okay. Now, but depending on what context we're using. Now, regain, but in this case, now let's use what? Restore. You can't use return for an object. Let's use restore. Now, I said what?
Regain their shape.
Regain their shape or size. Regain their shape or size after the force. Does that come again? Stop it. Such object which will regain their shape or what? Size after the force causing. This causing the change is removed. Causing the change is removed. Okay? I said such object which will regain their shapes or size after the force causing the change is removed. Essence of remove is removed and said to be what? And said to be elastic. God bless you. And said to be elastic. Comma. And this property of solid are said to be elastic, comma. Let's write this up. Very good. And this property of solids, and this property, that's what is this singular this property of solids is known as elasticity. Let me write it here. It's known as elasticity. From the word elastic. And this properties, singular this, and this property of solids is known as what? I want if you are following with me, I want to ask some technical question. Okay, what's the difference? Let me not ask my technical generally. What's the difference between shape and size? Yes. Difference between shape and size. Are they the same?
No, sir.
Yeah, that is the difference. As I tell us.
So,
When we say shape, how comes your mind?
like the actual way which something is structured.
Okay, now let us say a shape is a structure. Like if I say shape of a I say the shape of a like say okay a matches box now. I know what kind of shape? Cube board. And that is the structure of that box. Exactly. Very good. I love that. When I say size,
Like maybe large size, medium size.
don't use size again like that one.
How big it is.
Eh?
How big or small it is.
How big or how small it is. Okay. What's the try? The width, the length. Okay, who else wants to try? The measurement. Now, how we say size? Talking about the quantity, the magnitude, the value. You know, as you are seated here now, let's say now, let's say I want to have a birthday party. And I say, okay, this party is buffet. What do you call buffet?
Yes, sir.
That's not buffet.
Service.
God bless you. And I arrange food, all kinds of delicacy. So it's already celebrating. Fufu, eba, panania. What is it, guys? The love price and more. And I say, serve yourself. Partner can just get there and just pick just 2 wrap of fufu, for instance, and take 2 meats. When you should get there, so we go and say, let me take 5 wrap of eba, and let's say 5 meats. You know why? Now, in that case now, Fatima took how many? He took how many? 5. Now, in that case, their quantity is quite different. Exactly, because he eat a lot, unlike Patty. I with me now. Now, that means when we talk about size, we're talking about the quantity, the magnitude, the value. When we talk about the shape, we're talking about the what? The structure. Please don't forget. Because sometimes you are reading and you see the word size and shape. Ask okay. And shape means structure, size means what? Quantity. Okay. Now, very good. Again, another question. What's the difference between, now I'm going to ask, these are not going to talk at all. Now, what's the difference between elastic and elasticity? When I say elastic and I say elasticity, what's the difference? What is quantitative?
Like crystal.
Like crystals and crystalline, that was me. Very good. Then we take elastic and elasticity. Let's get components.
So, elastic.
Listen.
I can stretch, right? Elasticity means that you have the tendency to stretch.
That means, wait, you're saying that elastic means that object that has a tendency to stretch. Exactly. Not that elasticity. Not that elasticity.
No, I
That's
said elasticity.
elasticity is stretching.
Like you stretch.
Now I'm saying that the object can be stretched and regained. That's what I'm saying. Not that elasticity.
It means like it's the tendency to be stretched.
Okay. Please clap for me. Got it. When we say elastic, it means that material has the ability to stretch and to regain. When we say elastic, it means it's all about the property, the tendency, the ability for that object to stretch and to what and to regain. One is the material, one is the functionality. Do you understand? In that context now. And let's now talk about, let's now define elasticity. Now, right? Paragraph, yes. Paragraph. I want to define now. Please, anytime let me give you an hint how we set questions in physics. Oftentimes, occasionally we ask students to explain. Our focus are always definition, examples, laws. Anytime we give you laws in physics, someone like me, you must come out. I must ask to state laws. Because you can't do it. Basically, the whole universe is operated by laws. Because what goes up does what? There's no law of gravity. You can't be seated where you're seated, you'll be floating. Exactly that. And that means definition, laws, are asked to state laws, define, examples. Then what I love most is calculation. Oh, you can't do that calculation in physics. And this topic is calculation. We do a lot of calculation in this topic. And graph, yes. Exactly. Okay. Now let's define. Let's define what? Right. Elasticity is the ability. Elasticity is the ability or tendency. Very good. That means you can say the right ability or what?
Tendency.
Very good. Of a substance. A substance or material to regain or restore. To regain or restore its original shape. And size after being distorted, just put it. Another for distorted to help you or change. So like, if you understand distorted, you understand change. Afterward, being distorted or what?
Change.
By an external force. By an external force or load. Very good. Now, that means if I ask you to define it for me, example, you test, what I expect is that you want, you must put ability or tendency. 2, substance or material. 3, regain or restore. Next,
Shape and size.
very good. Next,
Distorted or change.
the next,
External force or load. Practically
you understand? Now, let's define an elastic material. Next one.
An elastic material.
Yes.
Next one.
Next paragraph. Yes. Can we read the paragraph? The paragraph. An elastic material. An elastic material is a material that regains. Is a material that regains its original shape. Is a material that regains its original shape and size after the distorting continuous past continuous. So let's prayer continuous after the distorting force has been removed. Do you understand? Now subtopic Hooke's law. Hooke's. Hooke's law.
So I think different things.
Yes, no, they are different. That one is both. That one is biology. This one is a physicist.
So how about Robert Scott?
Yeah, I'm saying about biology. But this is biology. Yes. We have to about both, which is a biologist. We have this place who is what? A physicist. One is a biologist. One is a physicist. You understand? Now, this one thing about physicists. In those days, those guys were very smart. You know why? They know that a time will come, they will pass on. And so that they will not be forgotten, any law they stated, they name it after them. That means if Yusuf now give us a law, we call it Yusuf's what? Law. Can be Yusuf law of eating. That's all. Like this. Is it time?
No, sir.
Are you sure? It's time. What
Time.
Go. Or let's say, who's what's the F-Bass law of what? Of pleating air. Now, thank God that those guys gave us their law after their name. That way, those are not forgotten by now. That's why you see all this, you see someone like Ford, all this company that makes this company Ford. That Ford is owned by Henry Ford. Look at it. What I mean, company again that was named after that used to look it. Yes, Disney, very good. Now, all this Suzuki too. The name of people that yes, the name of those people that own it. And eventually in the future, if you own a company or you own a factory, you can name it after your what? Name. Now we stop here because the people will go. Wait, calm down. We'll continue from here. Okay, now we have come to the end of the class. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.